exposing the terror within sacred walls. The story you're about to hear is not for the faint of heart. It delves into the dark corners of a place meant to be holy, a place where light should prevail over darkness. Yet, within these walls something sinister lurks, waiting to prey on the unsuspecting. This is the unsettling story of Father Michael, a priest haunted by whispers and shadows. Father Michael was a man of deep faith, a beacon of hope for his parishioners. He had dedicated his life to serving God and his community, but little did he know that his faith would be tested in ways he could never have imagined. Father Michael was a devoted priest, known for his compassion, but his torment began with a faint whisper during prayer. It was a quiet evening. The church was empty, and the only sound was the soft rustling of the wind outside. As he knelt in prayer, he heard it, a faint, almost imperceptible whisper. At first he thought it was his imagination, a trick of the mind. But as the days passed, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. "Father Michael, you are not worthy," it echoed. The church was empty, yet the voice grew louder each night. It was as if the very walls of the church were speaking to him, mocking him, challenging his faith. He tried to ignore it, to focus on his prayers, but the whispers would not be silenced. They followed him everywhere, a constant reminder of his perceived unworthiness. He began to feel an icy presence, especially near the altar. The air around him would grow cold, sending shivers down his spine. It was a coldness that seemed to seep into his very soul, chilling him to the bone. He could feel eyes watching him, unseen but ever present, judging him. The whispers taunted him, "You cannot save them." Obsessed, he spent hours in prayer, but the ghostly figures haunted him, their faces filled with accusation. He would see them out of the corner of his eye, shadowy figures that seemed to flicker in and out of existence. Their faces were twisted in pain and anger, their eyes filled with a sorrow that pierced his heart. Years ago, a young parishioner had sought his help, only to meet a tragic end. The memory of that day haunted him. He had tried to save the young man, to offer him solace and guidance, but he had failed. The young man had taken his own life, and Father Michael had never forgiven himself. Now, it seemed, the spirits of the past had come to torment him. That failure now merged with his fears, questioning his faith and sanity. Seeking solace, Father Michael confided in fellow priests, but they dismissed his fears, suggesting more prayer. They told him that it was just his imagination that he needed to strengthen his faith. But Father Michael knew that what he was experiencing was real. The whispers, the cold presence, the ghostly figures, they were all too real. The whispers grew insistent. "You cannot escape your failure." They echoed in his mind, a constant reminder of his past mistakes. He could not escape them, no matter how hard he tried. They were always there, lurking in the shadows, waiting to pounce. "Now you will belong to us." Ghostly figures followed him, chilling him to the bone. They seemed to be everywhere, watching him, waiting for him to falter. He could feel their cold breath on his neck, their icy fingers brushing against his skin. He was never alone, not even for a moment. His ministry suffered. Paranoia consumed him, blurring the line between reality and madness. He could no longer tell what was real and what was a figment of his imagination. The whispers, the cold presence, the ghostly figures, they had all become a part of his reality. He was trapped in a nightmare from which there was no escape. One night, the whispers became a roar. "Join us, Father Michael!" The voices were deafening, a cacophony of sound that filled his mind. He could no longer think, no longer pray. All he could do was listen to the voices, to their demands. He saw the twisted face of the young parishioner he had failed. The young man's face was contorted in pain and anger, his eyes filled with a sorrow that pierced Father Michael's heart. He could not escape the young man's gaze, could not escape the guilt that consumed him. Terrified, he ran from the church, driving recklessly, tears streaming. He could not stay in that place any longer. The church, once a place of solace and peace, had become a prison, a place of torment. He drove through the night, not knowing where he was going, only that he needed to get away. Locking himself in his room, he begged for it to stop. "You cannot escape us!" they roared. The voices followed him, even in his own home. He could not escape them, no matter where he went. They were always there, always waiting. Father Michael discovered the church's dark history, unexplained deaths and accidents. He began to research the history of the church, hoping to find some explanation for what was happening to him. What he found was a history of darkness and tragedy, unexplained deaths, mysterious accidents, and stories of hauntings that went back centuries. An evil presence had fed on fear and suffering for years. Gathering others who had suffered, he found many tormented souls within the church. The church was a place of darkness, a place where an evil presence had fed on the fear and suffering of its inhabitants for years. Father Michael was not the first to be tormented by the whispers and the ghostly figures, and he would not be the last. They hoped for divine intervention, but their prayers remained unanswered. Father Michael prayed for deliverance, for some sign that God had not abandoned him. But his prayers went unanswered. The whispers continued, the cold presence remained, and the ghostly figures haunted him. And you, dear listener, have you ever heard whispers in the sanctuary? Have you ever felt a cold presence where warmth should be? If you have, then you know the fear that Father Michael felt. You know the terror of being watched, of being judged, of being haunted by the past. Have you felt a cold presence where warmth should be? Have you ever felt the chill of an unseen presence, the cold breath of something that should not be? If you have, then you know that you are not alone. You're not alone in your fear. Now you know there are others. There are others who have felt the same fear, who have heard the same whispers, who have been haunted by the same ghostly figures. You are not alone. Stay vigilant, my friends. Join us on TikTok and YouTube for more chilling chronicles, if you dare. The story of Father Michael is just one of many. There are countless tales of terror, of haunted places and tormented souls. Join us as we explore these chilling chronicles, if you dare.